Why do you think that those very fields that should be the most progressive and sort of display um, a signal of being really progressive are actually not at all?
That was one of the surprises of my research, is that the fields that are position themselves as the most socially progressive are the least diverse. And I'm thinking of, museums, fashion, Hollywood. And, a field like in corporate America, they've made far greater strides than any of the creative fields. And so it sort of defies this whole logic that we've heard for years, that it's because of education. And it's, people always have, the reasons, the excuses for why our institutions are not more diverse. But if you're thinking of Hollywood, we're not talking about whether or not you went to Harvard, Princeton, or Yale. We're talking about creativity.
Mhm.
You're thinking of fashion, the same thing. These are among the least diverse fields in the United States. And so, your question as to why, one of the reasons why corporate America has managed to make far greater strides, it still has problems, particularly in the upper echelons in leadership, but it's far more diverse than any of those fields, including academia. And it's because, first of all, there are more jobs to fill, so there's far greater competition, and they really need to get the best of the best. And they also have structures in place like anti-nepotism clauses, and so they're reaching outside of these small circles, these tiny spheres of influence that typically determine who gets hired when we're talking about more creative fields, and when we're even talking about academia, because we live in such a rigorously segregated society. And so people are hiring who they know, they're hiring who their friends know. So these spheres of influence often exclude people of color. And I'm saying people of color because, as you know, Sonia, my book is exclusively looking at racial
Mhm.
diversity, because I feel that it has been eclipsed by the
Mhm.
ever expanding umbrella
Mhm.
of diversity, right?
Mhm.
So the whole notion of diversity has become untethered from the history and legacy of racial discrimination. And until recently, many in the United States had insisted that race was no longer a concern. In fact, many argued that we lived in a post-race society. And if there's one silver lining from all of the unrest of, like, particularly since the summer and the tragic killing of George Floyd, is that fewer people now will deny just how deeply embedded these racial issues are in our country.